Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
So at 12:01 this morning, the President of the United States put into effect the reimposition of sanctions. The Iranian, this is what the President tweeted after the sanctions went into effect. The Iran sanctions have officially been cast. These are the most biting sanctions ever imposed, and in November they ratchet up yet again to another level. Anyone doing business in Iran will not be doing business with the United States. I'm asking for world peace, nothing less. Mercedes-Benz announced that they have pulled out of a joint venture with the Iranian. By the way, if you're doing business with Iran, you're doing business with the Ayatollahs. The Mercedes-Benz has pulled out. The Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, responded to the sanctions by balking at the notion of diplomatic talks with the president, saying if you stab someone with a knife and then you say you want talks, then the first thing you have to do is remove the knife. In other words, we'll sit down and talk with you if you remove the sanctions. What does that mean? They know that these sanctions, these biting sanctions, crippling sanctions, are already having an impact on the Iranian economy.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so when you have, as John Bolton said in that interview, the European leaders can talk, and the European Union, which has been crumbling with Brexit and all these other issues that they're dealing with, can talk as much as they want, but these are private companies. So I think when you have these major brands, whether it's the oil companies preparing for the next round of sanctions, which go into place in the next 90 days, and but of course they knew that this was coming, or a major brand like Mercedes-Benz, which I think sends a message to the world as well, and maybe not as big as some of the oil companies familiar with U.S. audience, but when you have those kind of name brands saying no way, you realize this is a crippling economic effect. Think about the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of jobs that were coming that are no longer there. The manufacturing we talk about in our country that's not coming there. The factory that's not going to be built or is being halted from being built. This is serious, and this is only round one. When you hit the oil sector, 89 days from now, that's basically it for Iran. I mean, it's very difficult to do any business at all for companies that are also doing business with us here in the United States.
Let me go to our Director of Policy, Harry Hutchinson, on this. So, Harry, looking at it, you've had it's been in effect now for 12 hours. What impact is it having already? Well, we saw Mercedes-Benz.
It's having an immediate and dramatic effect on Iran and Iranian investments. So while the Iranian government and the European community both work to thwart the impact of sanctions, it is clear that multinational corporations are not stupid. And so you have Mercedes-Benz, Total, Renault, Volkswagen. All of those entities have indicated that they are going to pull out of Iran. Why? Because the Europeans' trade with the United States equals over $1 trillion. So $10 billion with Iran or $1 trillion with the United States, I think we know what the answer is going to be.
All right, we're going to take your calls and comments on this. Do you support the president's crippling sanctions on Iran? We're taking a break. When we come back, we're going to take more of your calls. Developing situation in Iran. We are also in the middle of a matching challenge campaign at aclj.org. Any amount you donate to us, we get a matching gift for. You can do that at aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in just a moment.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
So we always favor diplomacy and talks, but talks needs honesty. This is coming from the Islamic regime in Iran. Talks need honesty. Is that there's a statement for you. Trump calls for direct talks as only for domestic consumption in America ahead of elections to create chaos in Iran. Well, that's not true, but let me tell you this. The impact on Iran is already being felt. We've talked about a little bit of those sanctions. I want to get Wes Smith, Colonel Smith, of course, our senior military analyst, to be engaged on this. Your reaction so far to these sanctions and the way it's already been playing out.
Yeah, as I said during the break, these sanctions are biting. They include not only metals like steel, aluminum, precious metals, they include commercial aircraft. And get this, Jay, they include any financial transactions that use United States banknotes. The world uses U.S. banknotes,
right,
and those transactions, as of midnight, are forbidden. Not only that, even though the European Union is talking a tough talk, last week, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, refused to release $400 million that Iran has in reserves in German banks, and the Central Bank of Germany. Iran has a bank in Hamburg, Germany. Yeah. There are several hundred million euros in that bank that belong to Iran. The Bundesbank, the central bank, has refused to release those euros to go back to Iran.
We've got an interesting call coming in. I don't know if are we ready for that call right now? Let's go ahead and take Larry on line 4.
Hey, Larry.
Hi. Let me first state that I am a supporter of Israel and its right to exist, but I do not support sanctions against Iran at this time.
Okay.
Because I believe it only goes to help punish the people of Iran and their ability to purchase goods such as food items, and that continued sanctions could further destabilize the area. And that's not in America's interest, Israel's interest, or the world's interest.
So here's the situation, Larry, and this I'm glad you called because we want to get it's great to get opposing views. Here's my thought on that. Number one, the sanctions. Well, look, I'm not going to disagree that the sanctions will have an economic impact on the people of Iran, but I will tell you this: the Iranian people are revolting on this. Not against the United. This is not death to America. This is not death to Israel. The calls on the streets are saying no more. I don't know if we have the one about no more funding of Hamas, no more funding of the bombs. Let's go ahead and I want to play this for you, Larry, so you get a sense of this. Do we have it?
This unidentified woman removed her headscarf, an increasingly common way for Iranian women to protest, and began addressing others.
Let's build our country with our own hands. People, do not be afraid. If we stand together and united, neither internal or external powers can confront us. We are Iranians. It is not our business what is happening in Palestine, Syria, Iraq, or Lebanon. Why should all our resources go to them?
So you've got, Larry, you have a real sense here that and I think this is the fact, that the people of Iran understand that these sanctions are going to have an impact, but they're already on the streets, Jordan.
Yeah, they're already on the streets. We've even seen clerics engage this. Clerics of, the 12er Shia Islam movement on the corruption issue. So I think, Larry, remember, when you have these kind of regimes and you remove sanctions, it was barely getting to the point where even that was positively impacting people. It was maybe long-term they feel like maybe some investment was coming. But the money is siphoned off by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard to go run wars that they're, by the way, not having great success in whether it's the Houthi rebels in Yemen trying to back up the Assad regime and this fight against ISIS, but also fight against rebels. And so when you have clerics, these look like he looks the same if you saw the imagery of a Rouhani or the Ayatollah. I mean, this is someone who is part of their movement who has said this corruption. I think this is going to be an interesting line here. So when you have the religious leaders, also the local religious leaders starting to move with the protesters who may be more secular. I mean, this is what happened when the Iranian Revolution happened in 1979, is you had a movement of anti-dictator, plus some the religious fanatics. The religious fanatics ended up taking over, unfortunately. Yep. But you're starting to see that group coalesce. That's unusual. Then
let's play. I think it's important. We like playing evidence for you. So let me give you. This is coming off of Al Jazeera, and this is a cleric, Kazim Sadiq. And this is, it's translated from Farsi, but here it is.
Delivering this week's Friday sermon, this preacher said, the economy is affecting everything, and fixing it is the key to happiness for everyone. He blamed government mismanagement and high-level corruption for Iran's economic troubles.
Corruption should be confronted seriously. When it comes to fighting violators, there should be no exceptions, regardless of their position, their relatives, or their contacts. These traitors must be confronted decisively.
This is coming from the Iranian clerics. So I'm going to go first to Harry Hutchison on this, to Professor Hutchison, because this is something we have not seen before.
Absolutely. So it's important to note, by way of background, that the social fabric in Iran is already eroding. People cannot afford rice, bread, and sugar, while the mullahs are enjoying luxury lifestyles. One of the great things about the reimposition of sanctions today is that the pain will now be felt by Iranian leaders. It's about time. It's about time that they feel the pain that the Iranian people have been feeling for decades, if not certainly years. And so it's important to realize that the funds from the Iran nuclear deal were not utilized to improve the lives of the Iranian people.
No, it was used, Wes, to export terrorism.
Exactly.
And they're the largest exporter of terrorism in the world.
And you have to ask the question, and I appreciate Jerry's call, why do we withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, and why are we imposing sanctions? It's not willy-nilly. We're not doing it to hurt the Iranian people. There are several things involved here. The reason there are sanctions, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, allowed them to continue to enrich uranium, and in 10 years would allow them to pursue a nuclear weapon. Plus, it did not address at all their ballistic missile program, where they are testing, even as we speak, ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear weapons, as well as their exportation of terrorism. So the sanctions are designed to bring Iran back into the community of nations and to stop their nuclear program and their hostile actions. And unfortunately, I think it's going to take sanctions like this to bring them to the table.
In the cleric we played, these are not reformists. So in the sense of they are not in this reformist.
They're not the moderating religious
force. He's a 12-verse Shia Islam. He is the head of the Tehran prayer on Fridays. He was appointed by the Ayatollah to do that. I mean, this is someone who is, though, I think, realizing what we discussed yesterday. I could be in jeopardy. My family could be in jeopardy. So maybe I'm going to start siding with a different faction. I also think this could be a move by the not the president of Iran and not the normal military of Iran, but the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the Ayatollah shifting the blame to the president, which would be what? A precondition, and without precondition to sit down with President Trump.
Say that again.
If you get extremist clerics to criticize the government, which they differentiate from the Ayatollah,
right?
And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard also is not part of that government. They are totally separate from the normal military. If you get the clerics endorsing that to the radicals, you can sit down with the President of the United States without worrying about retribution from them.
That's a big deal. All right.
And the secular groups there, I think, would be pleased with that, though you still have to be very careful with these guys.
Yeah, so on another Iranian cleric, this is from our friends at Memory, and in Israel, they do a great job on this. They monitor all the Islamic websites and audio. This is cleric's name is Saeed Mohammed, describes the regime as corrupt, thieving. Our country is beyond repair. Our revolution was not so that they could eat from our pockets. How long are we supposed to protect their interests? These are very, like Jordan said, you're playing 9-dimensional chess here with what's going on, Harry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So it's also important to keep in mind that the reimposition of the sanctions by the United States reflects the goal of getting the Iranian regime to stop destabilizing the Middle East, Syria, Yemen, etc. And so what the Iranian government has done, it has taken the money from the people, if you will, and it has used the money to fuel foreign wars. It's used the money to fuel terrorism, to support Hamas and Hezbollah. Meanwhile, the Iranian people are starving, and that is why they're saying death to unemployment and death to inflation rather than death to the United States.
All right, we're getting great comments coming in and great calls. So we're going to take some calls. We're trying to go through as many as we can in each segment to keep the lines open for you. And we want to know what you think of the president's policy with Iran. How do you view this? How do you view Iran on the world stage? And what do you think this means for the European Union? They're in a very interesting spot. Wes is agreeing with me here. They're in a very tough spot, the European Union, and the companies are already saying no, and the European Union is trying to fix it, and it's not going to work.
No, it's not. The bottom line is more important than a political stance, which is what the European Union is trying to take.
We're taking a break. When we come back, we're going to take more of your calls. Developing situation in Iran. We are also in the middle of a matching challenge campaign at aclj.org. Any amount you donate to us, we get a matching gift for. You can do that at aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in just a moment.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
We've done a documentary on the issue of Iran and its export of terrorism. Take a look.
How significant is the conflict with radical Islam?
Radical Islam intends that all of us live under Sharia law. The enemy is radical Islam.
If Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia will, Egypt will, Turkey, perhaps others.
The moment the Iranians have nuclear weapons, they have a nuclear umbrella over their international terrorist capability.
That is a formula for insecurity.
And I'm telling you, target number one is Israel. The Israelis cannot abide that. It is truly an existential threat.
These 40,000 rockets and missiles on the border with Lebanon could, be sprung and fired against Israel.
The more we have nuclear proliferation in the world, the more the risks are that there will be the availability of nuclear devices, the lethality of which is mind-boggling.
Is there a war going on with Iran right now?
This is the longest ongoing war in the Middle East. From almost day one, the Islamic Republic of Iran tried to obtain nuclear weapon and tried to export the revolution to proxy jihadist movement in the Middle East, trying to imitate the geniussy in the revolution of Khomeini to other places. And at the same time, the secret services of the United States and Israel declared war on Iran, and this is the clandestine war between these two forces.
Well, right now, Iran is the world's central banker to international terrorism. It funds Hamas, Hezbollah, terrorists in Afghanistan and Iraq and around the world. If you add to existing Iranian activities the capability to deliver nuclear weapons anywhere in the world, you make Iran a world power and a world threat. That's why it is legitimate for the United States, Israel, or others to take action now in self-defense to prevent Iran from continuing to violate its own treaty obligations and obtain nuclear weapons. It's not a desirable alternative, to be sure, but the preemptive use of military force in this case is actually far preferable to the world as it would be once Iran gets nuclear weapons.
In the White House announcement of the reimposition of sanctions, it included the following statement from the president: "Our policy is based on a clear-eyed assessment of the Iranian dictatorship, its sponsorship of terrorism, and its continuing aggression in the Middle East and all around the world." So these are already having a big, big impact. We're going right back to the phones.
Let's go to Daniel in New York online too. Daniel, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hi, Daniel. Go ahead.
Yeah, Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
The European Union needs to know, and all these companies that are pulling away from Iran need to know this is a great investment, erring on the side of the truth, because the Iranian regime is doing about a quarter of its business of its potential. If these sanctions have their ways, these companies will more than double their business with Iran in the future. So it's a great investment to err on the side of the truth, and I want to make that point very clear. And we need, as Christians, I didn't tell you screener this, but we in Western New York went down to New York City in the last fall to support the Iranians, and they're great people, and the Lord loves those people.
Oh, look, I've been very complimentary on the Persian people. I mean, they are industrious. They have added a lot to science and mathematics. They're smart people, and I think you're right. I think once you can unleash that economy in a system that's not corrupt, I think the impact it will be phenomenal for the people of Iran. But the Ayatollahs are siphoning off the revenue. They are robbing it from the people, and the clerics, as we said in the last segment, are starting to say that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a 5-year plan, but I think ultimately this could be our kind of balance to Turkey in Iran. I mean, I think that's the kind of ally it could become over time if this regime were to fall, and that you don't let they pull this stunt where the clerics are blaming it on the guys that they appoint as president, which looks like that's their move. Obviously, their move is going to be blame the politicians who they basically put in power. Right. Blame the politicians. Don't blame us, the religious leaders and the Guardian Council. And the
throw it out that way. Yeah. Here's an interesting comment though. Ted Cruz just tweeted this. The protests are intensifying across Iran right now, show us yet again that the Iranian people yearn to throw off the yoke of an oppressive regime. But Jordan just raised a really important point. What the Ayatollahs are going to do, you're not getting this kind of analysis anywhere else, let me tell you that. What the Ayatollahs are going to do is you're going to start seeing that they're going to blame the politicians.
Oh, they'll throw them in jail. They'll throw them in jail and execute them. They'll hang them in the streets. Typically it's happened before. Ahmadinejad's family has had trouble since, even though he started, and we now know he started this negotiation that opened up ultimately the Iranian economy. Was much more radical in the sense of what he was connected to with the Ayatollahs. And they've gone after his family, gone after a lot of the families that have been associated. So that would be their traditional move. The truth is, though, is that enough for the people of Iran to say, oh, we're actually going to accept that you have no control here when you have all the control if you can put these guys in jail. The president of Iran is not the president of the United States. It's a very weak position compared to basically anywhere else in the world. I mean, there's a dictator above the government who can blame the government.
Exactly.
Warren is in South Carolina on line 3. Warren, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Hey, Warren, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a Canadian. I live in Alberta, Canada. I'm a long-haul trucker.
Yes, sir.
You had a caller that said that it's going to hurt the Iranian people who are backing it. So I just want to tell you what happened in Alberta. We had our premier called Ralph Klein. He came in. Alberta was almost bankrupt, and he cut taxes, and he cut all the benefits that come. We're a socialist country. But anyways, he cut it all. People lost their jobs, their careers, and all sorts of – I lost my truck. And everybody backed him except union government employees. 6 years he had us debt-free, and we backed him for it, and they started teasing that he was King Ralph. It was a tease. But anyways, because he really helped the province. What Trump is doing is going to help the people in Iran that are backing this. Yes, it will help them, but when you go through some little pain knowing you're going to get a great benefit in the future – you take the pain. You take the pain. You say, thank God.
I'd say here's the answer to that. I mean, is it going to hurt in the short term? Yes. In the long term, what does it mean? Freedom from the Iranian people. It's worth the price. Is it going to cost the United States to pay more money? Maybe in Canada too for gasoline. Maybe. Is it worth the price to stabilize that region of the world? The answer to that is absolutely yes. I don't think this is a close call. And you're seeing this unbelievable divide between the Ayatollahs and the politicians. They control the politicians, but they will turn on them in a nanosecond, which is probably what's happening right now. Talking about so what does this mean for our military, Colonel Smith? I mean, what kind of situation is that the military, we have ships in the region. Mm-hmm. What does it mean for them?
Well, certainly Iran has very few options, very few direct actions against the United States because of these sanctions. But one of the things that they do have a history of doing, in addition to exporting terrorism, is to harass the United States Navy in the Persian Gulf region. And the other thing is the president of Iran.
Which is very dangerous to do under this president.
Very dangerous. Well, and it's dangerous for our sailors, too. Iran has about 300 patrol boats. They also have 33 submarines. So they have the potential to inflict some damage. I think if they tried to use one of their submarines to sink one of our ships, that'd be a suicidal move for the Iranian military and for the government. But on the other hand...
But you remember what they did when they captured the Navy... Our sailors that
humiliated
time.
Them.
Humiliated them and humiliated us.
Yes,
and
exactly.
President Obama did nothing. Did nothing. Jordan raised this the other day. I'm not convinced that under our rules of engagements now we would ever be allowed to be put in that position.
Absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, that young naval officer was really caught on the carpet by the United States Navy for surrendering and for letting that happen. But
that was the coming right from the top.
Exactly.
You know that. Coming right from the top.
Yes. He
because then they would said, we would have had a conflict with Iran. Does anybody think the United States is not going to win in a military conflict with Iran? Guess what?
Right.
We win. I don't think that will happen. There's no need for it to happen. And I think these Ayatollahs are bluffing, and they're about to fall, and it's about to crumble on them. That's what I think.
When Rouhani said the other day, though, that he intimated he might block the shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf.
He'll start a war that he'll lose in 15 minutes.
The long-standing policy of the United States, going back to President Carter, is that we will use military force if necessary to keep the shipping lanes open.
You know, this has been as old as world history, the shipping lane issue. I remember the Turks did this was the Dardanelles that the British had to deal with. I mean, this is as old as history itself.
The Barbary Coast.
But could you imagine, I mean, let's remember who we are.
They have a bunch of go-fast boats and a few submarines. We have aircraft carriers in the region. We can take your city out in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole city.
Cruise missiles.
I mean, in a minute.
Yes.
So you may be able to get your go-fast boats. I'm not saying there would be no casualties inflicted on both sides. But the truth is, do you want to do that to the Iranian people? No, you'd rather economically sanction. That pain is a lot easier to recover from than having to level cities, which you don't want to have to do in 2018. That is not the way you want to have to conduct these. But they pull a stunt like that, and it won't just be those boats being taken out, I don't think.
That's going to do it for the broadcast today. Don't forget our matching challenge campaign at aclj.org. That's aclj.org. Also, you can call in your pledge on the number that's on the screen for you right now. So we encourage you to do either one of those as we continue to fight the good fight all over the world, even including Iran. We did a great movie on Iran. You saw a little bit of an excerpt from that in the broadcast today. That's important. That's a big part of what we do at the ACLJ in educating you when we can bring you topics like the export, with Iran being the largest state sponsor of terrorism. We'll talk to you next week.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.